Good afternoon. Welcome to whatever this is. It's
What is it?
YERP. YERP is a waste of time, money. Now, here we got Phil, Phil Oakley, who is owner, founder, MD, all the nice titles of Outserve in
Stafford.
in Stafford. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember the name, being in Staffordshire. And we were talking a while ago. I said, "Well, I don't fully understand what you're doing," and you said to me, "ERP is a waste of time and money." And I went, "Hang on a second, fella. What the hell's ERP?" Let's before we even work out why it's a waste of time and money. So this is what we're trying to work out and untangle. What is ERP? Why is it a waste of time and money? And who should be dealing with it? Phil, do you want to tell us a quick introduction about Outserve?
Yeah, so at Outserve, we help small, medium-sized businesses get the most sort of efficiency out of integrated systems, including some of the things you can see probably behind me now, Xero, accounting software, Unleashed for inventory management, and particularly around e-commerce businesses that might be using Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento. So integrated systems that are going to make you more efficient, help you sell more, grow your business.
Right. Okay. So that's what you do. I mean, who's your typical sort of prospect or client?
Yeah, we're probably talking a challenger business, a challenger brand. So you might be thinking food and drink, manufacturing their own product with a great brand, sort of things that would be getting on the shelves of Waitrose, Tesco, Sainsbury's, and growing very very quickly. So our client is not Nestle, but they're the products sitting next to Nestle, maybe on the products, but also pharmaceutical technology, all sorts of exciting products, cleaning products, you name it.
So these are companies have been around for how long? Your
Some are
clients?
a very new startup, especially if they've got funding and they're coming to market quickly and got a great brand. Some definitely 10 years, 15 years. Generally speaking, we don't have that many clients that are sort of 50 to 100 years. We have one quite nice client that has been going about 100 years, but that's the exception, really. We're really talking about probably in the last 20 years. Are the majority of our clients, and plenty of what I'd call those new sort of challenger startups that have started probably in the last 5 years, maybe.
Okay. So these are companies who are growing fast.
Yeah.
Have stock, relatively fast moving, I'm guessing.
Relatively fast, absolutely, and obviously, you're always manufacturing and trying to do your production planning and get stuff out there fast enough and not hold on to it for too long and sell it fast enough. All the usual challenges of businesses that are scaling and have the challenges of scaling.
Okay, so looking at the title, why ERP is a waste of time and money. First off, what the hell is ERP? What is that?
Yeah, and we probably haven't got a lot. How long have we got, Roy?
You've only got about 28 minutes now.
Yeah, so we could probably do 28 minutes of what is ERP, but let's keep the simple. When I'm talking about ERP, or what we're discussing here, and of course it stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and we shouldn't even assume that people know. So Enterprise Resource Planning, it comes from when we used to have MRP, Manufacturing Resource Planning. But what we're really talking about is very large systems, often delivered by one company. So it's one big platform. So some would definitely know, like your top players in this market, be SAP, Oracle, Microsoft with their bigger ERP products. We're talking very, very large products, which obviously come with a very significant investment. Often, as I say, provided by one supplier. They even talk about, as a definition of one ERP, it obviously spreads very widely through all the departments of your business. Certainly not just sales or logistics or accounting, go much further, and all sits within one database. Dare I say, something like monolithic would be a good word. Again, I think what does monolithic mean? It's just one big block of stone. Actually, that sounds quite good to explain some ERP. One massive big block of stone.
So, I mean, what are the drivers where someone sits back and goes, "I need ERP"? I mean, What sort of things are they seeing? Because it sounds to me like it's a lot of, I mean, if we're saying in the title something's a waste of time and money, sounds to me like ERP might cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. What are the drivers to get people to say, I need ERP? Because I don't know.
I think there's interesting things. There's probably maybe some myths, as there often is in these areas. I think what we see with challenger brands is maybe you take somebody who has worked for Nestle, and if you're in Nestle, then definitely you've got ERP, you've got probably SAP, and got Oracle, and then they come to work for maybe a smaller challenger brand, bring some absolutely fantastic skills, but then see some issues in the business around systems, integration, efficiency, and thinking, oh well, when I was at Nestle. I'm not picking on Nestle, but it's one that springs to mind. We had ERP, and that controlled absolutely everything within in the system. I would probably ask the question. So when you were at insert big company name here, FTSE 100, S&P, whatever, how did that ERP work out for you? But I think there is this: if we want to be a big company, and when we get to a certain size, we should have ERP. With probably without the understanding of, well, why, what benefits would it bring? And I would absolutely say that, on that journey of any business, probably eventually you will get to ERP or need ERP when you're the right size and the right level of either complication or need. I would say a few things around the fact that a lot of the people that we speak to really have some very interesting challenges, and they have interesting challenges now, and they could really do with a fix. A fix within the same year would be nice, and as soon as possible, especially depending on how urgent that requirement is. But if you're looking to fix an urgent problem with ERP, probably don't use ERP, because you should be thinking more in a 2 year, maybe even 2 to 3 year span. So that's not going to solve an urgent problem today.
Well, what sort of problems are people seeing? What sort of? I mean, I'm trying to get my head around this.
So let's keep
something happens and everyone says we need ERP. What sort of problems are they typically seeing?
So let's keep some nice simple ones that maybe most of us can understand. Maybe
make it simple.
Yeah, that
for me.
At a basic level, we're doing a lot of manual input, a lot of just literally typing on the keyboard, particularly where there's a duplication of effort. So I type it in over here, and then I have to go over there and type it exactly again. But of course, as we know, human beings being human beings, they don't always end up exactly the same by the time you put it in twice. But also then you've doubled the time and the effort. So we've obviously got a system over here that needs some information, but also this other system needs some information, and the two aren't talking. And that may be the first thing we go, our systems don't talk together. We need ERP, because that was one big monolithic system, and we didn't have to maybe rekey all these things twice.
No.
And that really, again, is a discussion probably around things like integration and words like interoperability, which just means things that work together nicely.
And what sort of so they've got all this stuff that they have to type in, which is tremendous. They get it wrong, because people do that sort of stuff. And what does that mean? I mean, if they get it wrong, how does that affect their clients? How does that affect the business?
I think it could be on. You could take any sort of example. Maybe you're typing a sales order details from one system, maybe into your courier delivery. You've suddenly typed the customer's name or the customer address wrong, and of course, even if that parcel arrives at the right place, if you spent the customer's name wrong, well, they're not going to be probably overly impressed, and it's not good customer experience. To the thing, of course, the parcel never arrives, or arrives in the wrong place.
I just had that yesterday. Someone put a postcode in the wrong place, and it ended up in a different area of Stoke-on-Trent, which was.
It's very easy done, isn't it? I've got, even just on a low volume, I've got 10 orders over here in my inventory management system, and I need to get 10 orders in the courier system, and I'm just going to type them in, and maybe I've picked up on the 10. I'm literally typing as fast as I can, and I've literally, or I've copied and pasted, even if I'm, something has the potential to go wrong. So
this thing takes out duplication of efforts, which means that the final delivery ends up where it wants to be.
So, what we'd be talking about, we'd be looking at a solution for integration to solve that problem today, which is not ERP, which is, another solution from another company that's going to integrate maybe two things together. So we're integrating your sales order processing system with the courier system. And this is where we're saying this is not ERP. Obviously, ERP system does that sort of thing as part of its monolithic system, maybe, that you would hope that your future ERP is integrated with your courier system, but that's probably 2 or 3 years away and a very, very significant investment. And probably that's the unfortunate thing. By the time you've started planning for your integration to FedEx, in 3 years' time, FedEx will have been bought by, BBC or whoever, and it'll be a different issue. Whereas a lot of it for smaller, medium-sized businesses, again, we're back to speed, and they need a solution to a problem in the next 6 months, not in the next 6 years.
Right. So what you're saying is, the ERP sounds a very costly solution, time intensive, a lot of training, and sometimes people are missing out a step and going to the big ERP instead of the interim solutions, which will give them what they want, but will eventually just run out of steam some years down the line, but still allows them to grow without spending that huge amount of money before. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think we spoke before, didn't we? One of the questions, are you ERP ready? And maybe that we are in that world. You are definitely on a step journey, and we could call it about change, digital transformation. But really, a lot of businesses are looking to go from sort of here down there and then jump right across. And actually, there's probably a slightly more step journey, and it probably is going to take a few years to get ERP ready and to understand the ERP project as you're growing. But you're still going to need some solutions along the way to make everybody's life easier and add some efficiencies. And that also helps you understand what you will want out of ERP to really help you get the most out of return on investment and plan it properly.
So these intermediate steps, this is pretty much lower cost, lower training requirements, lower time to integration to get the results they need for today. I mean, is there a word for that? I mean, we've got ERP, which sounds very nice. Sounds very clever. What's the intermediate bit?
I suppose we've talked a lot, about cloud software. So you've got, your Zeros and your Unleashed and Shopify's that very much people would use. But I suppose we could really do with a new term to describe all of these cloud softwares being integrated together. They're not monolithic. They're not from one supplier. They're not in one database, but they are actually fully integrated cloud systems. There is definitely a term I need to cut. It's sort of like enterprise resource planning without the ERP.
So like fully usable cloud services.
Yeah, and I think
that wouldn't work, would it? Because people could just that we need something else. Actually,
we've moved from this world of we have one piece of software that does one thing. So we used to have Sage to do the accounts, and Sage didn't probably really talk to anything else. And then when we got another CRM system that didn't talk to anything else either, and then the world has then obviously morphed onto these cloud systems, but they can talk to each other and they can integrate. So they are becoming, again, sort of like a pseudo ERP because we can do integration between these cloud platforms. Nothing is a perfect solution, but of course, as you say, this is a lot lower on the investment scale relative to an ERP implementation of the sorts we've been spoken about with the very big companies. So some of these integrations can be a significant investment, but clearly if that's going to save you hours and days and days and days, improve your customer experience, allow you to sell more, allow you to grow, probably absolutely worth that investment, even if it's an investment for 2 or 3 years, which gets you to ERP, so you're more ERP ready.
And if they bring this ERP forward, this huge investment in ERP, enterprise resource planning, wouldn't that make sense to save that intermediate step, or is that first step so big?
I think obviously you can never say never, and it's not in always the cases, but so many ERP projects that we see that they're going to take a significant amount of time to implement. And as you can probably imagine, trying to rush that
time
will probably make not in, well, you tell me, Roy, when things are rushed, they generally don't improve. They're not better when they're rushed. And again, that is a chunk of change to invest in a solution if it's rushed and it's not actually doing what you want it to do. One of the biggest issues we find with the growing, even the medium-sized growing businesses, is actually today a lot of the time they haven't got shall we say, a systems team. They haven't got people within the business to manage an ERP system. Today they haven't got a big ERP system, so they don't employ anybody to manage a big ERP system. So they could have, even if they had a big ERP system tomorrow, which they could just wave a magic wand and go, right, I'll have a big ERP system, please. They haven't got a team or key staff to actually manage it. And it's now not just the operators or the key people in the business doing the very important stuff. It's a level of resource that they're just not geared up for a lot of the time.
That's a very interesting point. But I mean, they might have ERP solvable problems today, but staff-wise, organization-wise, I mean, these people are probably running around with printed out spreadsheets. Is that what happens, or? I
think we see a lot of spreadsheets. We often start when we're looking at new systems or looking to get new systems into people and integrations. The first question is, show us your spreadsheets. Come on, get them all out. Show us the one things that you actually run the business on. And there's some dirty little spreadsheets hidden somewhere. I would definitely say that, this is so not always about system and software. It's about people and process. And that's the other thing, maybe, that you're not ERP ready. Have you got standard operating procedures? Is it all documented? I think, you would really want to base an ERP implementation on tried and tested, consistent and reliable SOPs, standard operating procedures. Now, unfortunately, for you to go into most businesses today, most medium businesses, and ask them to get their standard operating procedures out and let's have a look at them. We even find, I'm sure you've seen the people who've gone to their ISO accreditations, there may be a folder sitting on the side that has been audited and checked, but are those actually being applied day in, day out, robust, consistent, that all the staff know about? And would you be happy to implement an ERP based on your ISO accreditation?
So you said here, was it system, services, people and processes?
So you're talking about software and systems, which we talk about. That's what we do. But actually, it's all about people and process. And really, the word here is change. It's about change management. And change is what we're really, because you've taken a business running like this on some spreadsheets, very flexible, do what you want, enjoy it. And the change management to go from here to there is very, very significant. And that needs planning, time, and that's the big shift that maybe people don't realize when they think about ERP. Don't think about software and systems. Think about the change for your people and your processes that is going to have to come in. And that's back to us saying that you're going to be ready. Seems the buzz phrase at the moment is digital transformation. How do we get all our businesses to digitally transform? It sounds like part of some government initiative because we would be more efficient to make more money and all of those things. Or, digital transformation is the keys in the word transformation. It's change. And I think we know that people don't always adapt well to change if they're not properly supported. There's many things we need to do, and that needs to go through the organization.
Right. So what I'm getting is, whereas companies might have ERP problems, they haven't got the people and processes to deal with those without spending a hell of a lot of money. And where you've got something to set them on the trajectory for ERP systems, you deal with the middle bit that takes relatively commonly used bits of application software. I mean, I can see Xero at the back. I use Xero. I can see it to one side as well. Is that Unleashed?
Yeah.
To your other side, Unleashed. and you're taking these systems that might get people started on the road, you're bolting them together to prepare them both system wise, software wise, get their people used to using these things, and building a process. So somewhere down the line, at the tipping point where it makes sense to work with ERP, they've been able to grow their business, keep it effective, maintain their client base. Nobody's been cheesed off at them. Everything's turning up where it should be without spending the ridiculous amount of money and recruiting the staff who can deal with this. Did I understand that right?
I think that's a very good summary. I think, again, we'd have to say that, there is no perfect solution, but what we're delivering is, an amount of value which can be delivered quite quickly. And I think the great thing about this level of flexibility, again, it's fantastic for those businesses that are growing like that. But let's be honest, in these changing times, you may be planning for growth over the next 2 or 3 years. Maybe you don't quite make it to where you need to be in 2 or 3 years, which means you could possibly stay on these systems a bit longer. Fantastic for ones that have grown and do want to need that ERP at that time. And it is worth saying, these cloud platforms are improving every day. And by integrating these cloud platforms together, we are getting closer to an ERP-like solution, which actually has some other benefits that sometimes ERPs can't provide.
And of course, if I was running a business that made, I don't know, some exotic alcoholic liqueur, sounds like an idea, to be fair.
Yeah.
If I'm spending all my money on ERP and staff too soon, that money is not going into improving the manufacturing process, getting the brand recognized better, upskilling the staff, getting a better sales force in place. You can if you take this interim step, you can invest that money into things that are actually going to grow the business, that will take you to the next step. But then you'll be able to afford the next step far better than you are now, unless someone turns up with a big bucket of money so they can start it off from day one, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that, again, if we go and have a look at specific problems that these type of businesses have, you might go in and go, you've got a courier integration problem. Well, let's solve that courier integration problem. Let's not throw the whole system out and replace absolutely everything because the one part is working. Here's another good example, maybe as you mentioned it, maybe they need a CRM system, customer relationship management, because they've got a sales issue. Well, let's go and get, the right CRM for you today to start working on that sales problem, a HubSpot, a Salesforce, whatever it might be, a capsule CRM. But let's not throw everything out to get a complete ERP in with the CRM element you would expect to be part of any ERP implementation. You can actually focus on the problem and deal with that issue. And as again, that medium-sized business, that's probably that's a big enough challenge to take on. Not rip everything out of the business and the things that work. So a lot of you are taking ERP out and you're using Zero might not be a problem, but you're going to rip it out because you're going to put ERP in.
So when we're looking at implementation time to actually incrementally improve what they're doing, with ERP, we could be talking many months before anything's happened. And what you're saying to me is we could make an incremental improvement, within days, weeks.
I think we're careful. We've probably got to say that with ERP, it could be many years before.
Years. Wow.
Yeah. There could be some quick wins, but certainly we could talk within months. Again, let's not rush. We've probably, the business may have had again this problem for, could be 12 months, but it's probably more like 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, and it's about getting in there, understanding the solution, and admitting and saying when you understand the problem, and it may be that this isn't a good fit, and it's all about, let's not waste a penny on anything that is going to be wrong. Maybe you do need ERP, or maybe one of these cloud solutions is not going to be right. So spend that time, and spend the time looking at people and process. This is half the issue, is people jump in too quickly. They want a solution tomorrow, so they go and get another thing and then another thing. And actually, nothing solves the problem, because really they probably didn't focus enough on the actual issue to begin with, understand the issue, start with the people and processes, and then go to the software. And of course, that doesn't need people like us. Many people, smaller businesses, can just hopefully start with that sort of approach themselves internally and go, really, let's try and understand what the issues are. Let's understand the people. Let's understand the processes before we just try and get another piece of software to solve the problem.
And I do remember the thing, was it Abraham Lincoln said, if something like, if I've got to cut down a tree, I'll spend a lot of the time just keeping the axe sharp. The tree cutting down bit is relatively straightforward. I mean, it sounds to me as if, before we think too big on ERP, which is an ambitious undertaking, actually we should. The solution might be out there that's not going to cripple them or slow them down economically or financially.
Let's be honest, the solution, they might already have it. We have people coming to us all the time using Xero, using other products, and saying, we're too big for Xero. We can't, use it like this in Xero. Actually, are you using the solutions you got properly? And, are you aware of all the things that you can do within the solution that you've got that will actually, again, keep you on Xero for another year or 2 or 3 years before you go to ERP? I think some people are just too quick to jump. I've got the wrong thing. I need something else. Well, let's just look at what you've got. And of course, that could be some investment in consultancy. That's a big saving, because there isn't the change of system. If you could actually, the first question I would hope to think for most people, can we improve what we've got to be better? Maybe it's our process. Maybe it's workflow. Maybe there's just something we could do differently with what we've got, which would be better. This, I need to get rid of something and replace it with something else, I think that's step 2 after you've done step 1, to actually ascertain, could you do a better job with what you've got?
And I'm loving that. So that would be the first question, really.
Yeah. And what we see a lot of the time is people put systems in, again, could be 5 or 6 years ago. They did their best as while they were running the business and everything else. And everything's moved on since then. But the sort of implementation is pretty much as it was day one. And the software's moved on and improved. But actually, they've not looked at it again. And now to go back, and of course, it was fine when they were smaller with less transactions and less complicated. A few years later, now the volume is scaling, it is starting to hurt. But actually, that again, it might be more about how it was set up. Could it be set up differently? Are there other improvements that could be brought in the system? And I think, why would you not look to see that you can get the most out of what you've got before looking to spend lots of money on something that actually maybe no better? We see this a lot, or maybe even worse. And that's your worst case scenario, isn't it? Jumping out the frying pan into the fire.
I'm loving the sounds of that. We're running short of time here, so I'm what I'm getting from this is ERP sounds like it's absolutely a great solution, but it's not for everyone at all times, and be very careful about what you do. I guess for me, if I was in this position, I would have to go to a trusted expert and say, what have we got? Without selling the family jewels to get it fixed, what sort of things do we need? And typically, I'm guessing I'd be a company, sub 10 million, sub 5 million.
Yeah, I think, and again, it could be much bigger, much bigger than that.
Okay.
That could cope, but in that scale, that's absolutely fine. That's where we can start.
And clearly, that's what you do. You know what you're doing on this, and you've implemented dozens and dozens of applications, making people's lives better. How can people contact you, Phil?
I think they could probably start by looking on LinkedIn. I think that's where both of us are, Roy. So if you on LinkedIn search for Philip Oakley and Outserve, you'll find us there, OUTSERVE. Obviously, outserve.co.uk is the website, and you can contact us through the website. It's got all our contact details, telephone numbers, and everything else. But certainly feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and connect. And absolutely, just to say, obviously, ERP per se, fantastic technology, fantastic companies, absolutely right for the largest companies in the world, and hopefully will be absolutely right for the growing businesses at the right time. And that's the hard question, isn't it? It's understanding when that right time is and what you're going to do along that journey along the way, and how are you going to make things a little bit better each day.
It's all about timing, and I think having conversation with the people who know is really important. And if they need ERP, you'll tell them. And if they don't need ERP and there's other solutions, you'll tell them that as well. I know you're a thriving business. The last thing you want to do is get into some inappropriate applications. So I know you're very truthful. We've run over by a few seconds. Phil Oakley from Outserve, thank you very much. We're going now, and I've learned a little bit about ERP and some of the tripwires, and just recognising the tripwires can be a great help. Wave goodbye, Phil.
Goodbye, Phil. Goodbye,
I've got to find my mouse now. It's here somewhere.